One of the things you have to remember when you're talking about paranormal phenomena or psychic phenomena, whether it's ghosts or telepathy or what have you, they're human generated. They're generated by people. These are things, these are abilities, these are skills, whatever you want to call it, that are done by the living that also seem to survive the barrier of death, and those who are dead seem to be able to do those things too. So at its core, all these phenomena are human generated. Everybody's experience with the paranormal, everybody who has an experience with the paranormal, that's their ghost story. Everybody who's had that brush with the paranormal, they have their own personal ghost story. Again, whether you've had that dream about the plane crash or you've run into a ghost or whatever, you've had an out-of-body experience, that is your own subjective paranormal experience. That's your ghost story. And we can research that, we can study it, we can try to put it under a microscope, we can bring in environmental sensors and cameras and do the whole shebang and try to explain it from a scientific, rational point of view, which is what I really try to do. But I also don't want to forget the fact that there's a human story there. There's a human component to that story. And whether or not I can shed any light on it, whether or not I can say it's real or it's not, is really irrelevant to the person that's actually had the experience. So for me, all I can do is try to educate, try to pass on information, but in the end, your experience is yours, and I want it to stay with you. I don't want to take away from it just because I use a scientific methodology.
Why are we doing this? I grew up in Southern California. I lost my dad when I was 6. And over that time, things have happened. Things that I wouldn't have necessarily considered as being paranormal at the time. Until I got a little bit older, I started to kind of re-examine some things that would happen from time to time. And these were all date-driven events. And they all corresponded with, my dad's, the day that he died, the day my mom and him got married, the day of his birthday. Weird things that I started to notice on these event dates. And putting that together and having a few experiences along the way as well, not necessarily tied to my dad, have kept me going. Not every case you go to, or every location, or every building, or whatnot, that is alleged to be haunted, you're going to have an experience at. And a lot of times, we can do a case study at the hotel, for example. We could spend years and years and years there and not get a single thing. And then one day, we get one thing, and then all of a sudden, your batteries are recharged, you're re-energized, and then you're reminded, that's why I'm doing this.
For me, when I was young, I had experiences that I couldn't, wrap my head around. I couldn't fully understand, and still really don't to this day. But they were my personal experiences, and for me to turn a blind eye on that and literally ignore what I've had experienced, I think would be a disservice to myself. And so what I'm hoping to come out of this field with is better understanding, better answers, better grasp on things, and maybe even answer some of my own personal questions that have been something that I've wanted to get closure to, if that makes sense.
One of the biggest differences between what we do as paranormal investigators and what we do in paranormal research is the controlled environment. In an experiment, we can control not just the environment, but all the other controls and components involved so that we can isolate a particular hypothesis and the actions that would prove or disprove that hypothesis. In an investigative field study, which is what paranormal investigation really is, you are there simply to record and interact with that environment, to test one thing or the other. Usually it's the claims of activity. There's not a whole lot of experimental control to that situation. So at best, we are there to basically document and record and try to analyze what's available. from that particular situation. In a laboratory setting, you have controlled and uncontrolled variables that you can actually test and interact and control to affect the outcome and the results. The organic nature of paranormal investigation really appeals to me, because quite often things will come up that you can't think of. And that is where activity usually occurs.
Ghosts for me have always been a part of my life ever since I was a kid. I've always believed in ghosts. I always believed that there was a possibility of ghosts, of an existence beyond our physical realm. I've had my experiences, some before I was investigating, some things I couldn't explain, and some that I truly feel were paranormal experiences. Even looking back now, after all the years of research and knowledge I've gained, I can look back on some of those and still say something was definitely different about what I experienced. So I've always believed, and I think that's what made it so easy for me to step in and get involved into the paranormal research, is because, first of all, it's exciting. And you can't help but deny that, you can't not deny that most of the reason this is such a popular field of research nowadays is for the excitement of it, the possibility of seeing a ghost, seeing someone who's died, someone on the other side. No matter what data I now encounter, it's difficult for me to refer to it as evidence, even if it's a powerful piece of information that's gathered. It's almost like I don't want to debunk, I don't want to prove wrong, but I feel like I'm fooling myself to not fully investigate. And I don't want to let myself be fooled for lack of information. I want to keep going further, to take it as far as I can. Some people see that as debunking. I don't see it that way. I see it as being responsible and thorough.
If you love her, if you approach her with an open, loving heart, she is going to reward you in ways that you never knew possible. And this is why people, when they check out, say, I don't want to leave. And this is why I believe some of these entities have chosen to come back. And some of them are seasonal. They only come certain times of year. I don't see them. I never see a thing. But I understand somehow that they're here. And I recognize the different personalities and some of their needs. Some of their needs are too big. And I think, I'm sorry, no. You have to set your boundaries. It's like taking a kindergarten class to the zoo. Sometimes they're so excited, they're just all over you, and you just think, no. And I'm not crazy. I didn't think about this before I moved here. But once I'm here, I'm understanding that there's something that you can't catch on a snippet of film. You can't catch it just by staying here. You have to experience the building over a period of time. So what I would like to see from this documentary is for folks to understand that, first of all, you can't be afraid. Approach them with love and they have nothing to feed off of. There are places that have wonderful souls that have chosen to go back because of the joy that they felt there. And I'm very, very fortunate to be owned by this wonderful old space that people have chosen to come back here afterwards to just experience a moment of joy. There are places on this planet that I know when I die, I will go back and visit periodically because they brought me such an immense joy at that moment. I want to go back there just for a brief period of time. I won't stay there because I was only there for a brief time, but I will go back and visit if I have the opportunity.